All right, what's up, YouTube? This is Big Mike. I don't normally talk about boxing, man, but this was a big event, a fight that many of us have been looking for, and probably will go down as maybe the fight of the year. I know, of course, last month you had Mayweather versus McGregor, but that was more of a circus, more of an event to put asses in the seat and look at it as more like sports entertainment. You know what I mean? This was a more important fight as far as determining the top fighter and fighters of the middleweight division. And Canelo Alvarez, of course, fought Gennady Golovkin. There was much speculation going into this fight that Golovkin may have been on the downside of his career, having not looked as impressive the last few fights. I think he went the distance his last fight, and of course this fight, so that means there's two consecutive fights that he's gone the distance. And of course the biggest knock on Golovkin is the fact that his resume has not been the most impressive. Canelo by far is the best fighter he's ever fought. Then of course you have Canelo Alvarez, who was seen as improved. He's bigger. He's entering the prime of his career. He's a better boxer overall. And some people giving the edge to Canelo in this fight. So, of course, if you don't know by now, the fight was declared a draw. Now, there are some people who are calling this a robbery. Now, to me, a robbery is when one particular boxer has unquestionably dominated the entire fight. With this fight, I can't say it's a robbery per se, because I can't say that Golovkin, undeniably dominated the entire bout. But I will say that I thought that, in my opinion, Golovkin won the majority of the fight, the majority of the rounds. I thought that he won the first round. I thought that he won, more importantly, the middle rounds, at least 4 or 5 consecutive rounds of those, and I thought he won a couple of latter rounds. So, of course, that would give him 7 or 8 rounds of this fight. But by no means is that a dominating performance, and some of those rounds are open to interpretation. But what I did notice in this fight, though, whether or not you thought that he won the fight or not, was the complete bias of Jim Lampley toward Gennady Golovkin. It's sickening. I can see why HBO, a lot of people just detest HBO's boxing commentators. I thought that, in fairness and trying to be like professional as a boxing analyst, I thought that of the 3 that I heard, I thought Max Kellerman did the best job. I thought Roy Jones was sucking off Canelo far too much. But what I think maybe with that is, maybe you have one guy that's pro Golovkin. It's intentional, maybe. Maybe you have one guy that seems pro Golovkin, one guy that seems pro Canelo, and then you have the voice of reason, I guess. I don't know. I don't listen to them enough, but I did notice the total bias in Lampley and even Roy. I don't personally have a dog. I didn't have a dog in this fight. I admire both fighters. I don't like, of course, the camp that Canelo fights for, and I despise a lot of Triple G's fan base, but I don't dislike him as a person. I think he's actually a pretty nice guy from what I could tell, like I said. I think also, just trying to think of different things to talk about this fight. I sometimes wonder if the fact that they're friends is a bad thing. Canelo Alvarez and Triple G. This was expected to be a war. Initially, we didn't get that. We got a lot of filling out between the two fighters. It seems like Triple G was respecting Canelo Alvarez's power too much. And earlier on, because of Golovkin's tentativeness, and earlier on, Canelo looked very sharp. Canelo had the early advantage, but I think it was around the fourth round that Golovkin finally listened to his corner man, his trainer, Abel Sanchez, and he started to let his hands go more in that fourth round. I thought that he won that fourth round, but the fifth round was when the fight finally broke out, from my memory. The fifth round is when the fight finally broke out, and Golovkin finally resembled a little bit more of himself, and was letting his hands go. What else I want to say? From about round 5 to about round 9 or so, Golovkin, I thought, more or less kind of dominated that period of the fight, and he made Canelo the retreating fighter, and Golovkin was, of course, the more dominant fighter and the aggressor. I do want to say this, though. I thought whenever Golovkin got Canelo on the ropes, Golovkin won that exchange. But I do want to say that I thought Golovkin should have dominated that matchup a little better than he did. True, Canelo has a great chin, as does Golovkin, but I don't know. It's something was a little bit off with. I don't know how to explain it. It's like Golovkin looked good in those middle rounds. He did, and I thought he won. Maybe it's the fact that Canelo is just a better fighter. Maybe he just made Golovkin look a little bit less stellar, and that's certainly possible. But I thought that Golovkin won those exchanges when he had Canelo Alvarez on the ropes, but I thought that he should have touched him up even more so than he did. And I also noticed in the center of the ring, Golovkin looked especially slow. There were many times when Golovkin would throw a punch, and it almost looked like the Matrix when Neo finally believed in himself, or you know what I'm saying? He's starting to believe. And when he would see Agent Smith punch and just look at it and shit in slow motion, that's how it looked kind of like sometimes when Golovkin would throw a jab or a hook at Canelo when they were in the middle of the ring. Which leads me to bring this up. I think it's true that Golovkin is starting to slow down as a fighter. I don't know exactly how old he is off the top of my head, but I think he's, 36, going on 37. He's starting to slow down, I think, a little bit. I think that the Triple G of 2 or 3 years ago might have KO'd Canelo, but I think he's slowing down. But that's just my opinion, okay? But I thought that Golovkin eventually began to not show Canelo Alvarez the respect that he showed him earlier. I think it was in the 10th round with a minute to go where Canelo landed, when Canelo landed I think it was an uppercut. When Golovkin had him against the ropes, he landed an uppercut to Golovkin. I think it was to the throat or whatever. And Golovkin just seemingly walked right through it. And that's when you kind of have that moment where he no longer respects Canelo's power. Now, I think it was the 11th round or one of those rounds where Canelo finally let his hands go. But later on, Golovkin answered the assault with an assault of his own. And also it appears to me that despite the fact that Canelo was the much younger man, it seems that after the 5th or 6th round, Canelo was the guy who was more gassed, and you could see it. You know, I think maybe it was a combination of the pace of the fight and the fact that the fight went the distance, and the fact that you're fighting a guy who was one of the great power hitters in the middleweight division of all time. So that's it. I mean, I think personally that Golovkin won the fight, but if it's a draw, it is. You know what I mean? Now, I'm going to say this. Was there home cooking? Most likely. That 118 to, 110 or 111 score by that female judge, who was the wife of a judge, who, probably may even be in the rematch fight. I think that was bullshit, okay? There was no way that Canelo won that fight by 118 to 110, but that's that golden boy bullshit, you know what I mean? That's that home cooking. But the fight is a draw. I think that's also because of the fact that by it being a draw, that gives a better excuse, or it gives yourself a built-in excuse to have a second fight. You know what I mean? Kind of reminds me a little bit, even though I think that fight was much more of a robbery, when Lennox Lewis fought Evander Holyfield back in 1999. And I think most people would tell you that Lennox Lewis won that fight, but yet it was ruled a draw, and then it had the rematch fight. So kind of have the same situation, but that's my take on it, man. I think if you had to put a gun to my head and ask me who did I thought won the fight, I thought it was Triple G. But I do think that Triple G looks a bit old. A little bit. And Canelo Alvarez looked okay. I can't say he looked awful, but I thought that Triple G fought very well. Also, interestingly, despite the fact that Canelo Alvarez is considered the better boxer, I thought another reason why Canelo Alvarez lost his fight is because Triple G kind of outboxed him a little bit in some ways. I think his jab was the definitive factor in this fight. And, earlier on, Triple G fought differently. He was kind of tentative, and he fought a little bit differently. He kind of boxed, but he was effective, and he landed a lot of jabs against Canelo Alvarez, and in my opinion, he built up kind of a lead over that, and then eventually he caught up with Canelo Alvarez and exceeded him in power punches. So that's why I think that Canelo Alvarez lost the fight. But, that's just my opinion. It's not like, oh man, this is a robbery, oh man, this is ridiculous. I know a lot of Triple G fans are going to say that. Canelo Alvarez fans are going to say that their guy was robbed. But this is just boxing, man. And you see these types of decisions made for political reasons, not political reasons, but not in the sense of politics like elections, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's you see these types of decisions because there's always dollar signs in these guys' eyes, man, and the only way that Golovkin was going to come away with this fight with a victory was if he knocked out Canelo, and he didn't do that, and therefore, they ruled the fight a draw. If anything, I guess they had a little bit more respect for us as fans because they made it a draw instead of a victory for Canelo. But then again, if it was a victory for Canelo, that would lessen the I guess it would sort of lessen the, I don't want to say lessen the interest, but by it being a draw, it kind of lowers the outrage factor, I guess. but you still feel, if you're a fan of the other fighter, that of a particular fighter, you feel that they had won the fight. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna see Canelo Alvarez and Triple G Part 2 probably sometime next year, maybe in the spring or something. I don't know. But with every fight, with every war, in my opinion, at this stage of his career, Triple G gets older. So there's that, you know what I mean? So tell me what you guys think about this fight, who you thought won. And, you guys probably educate me more than what I've been talking about in this fight because, like I said, I'm not really a boxing channel. But I used to follow boxing, so I halfway know what I'm talking about. But a lot of you guys know a lot more about boxing than me. So tell me what you guys think.